In the towering heart of Chicago stood one of the most prestigious commercial real estate complexes in the Midwest, the Marshall Heights, gleaming windows, 50 stories tall, and home to several Fortune 500 companies. But behind the glittering glass and pristine lobby, something was deeply broken. And the man who would uncover it all wasn't a whistleblower or a journalist. He was the owner himself, posing as a janitor. Jaden Marshall, 38, was a self-made billionaire. From growing up in a one-bedroom apartment in Southside Chicago to becoming the CEO of Marshall Properties, his story was one of grit, vision, and relentless hard work. But success hadn't made him blind. When he started receiving anonymous letters and emails from employees working in his flagship building, letters describing mistreatment, racial discrimination, and unethical practices, Jaden felt something was off. He had built his empire on values, dignity, diversity, and fairness, and now it was time to test if those values still lived in the heart of his most prized building. But he wouldn't do it with memos or cameras. He wanted the truth, the raw, unfiltered truth. So he created a fake identity. Joe Carter, a quiet middle-aged janitor, newly hired by the cleaning services company. Jaden arrived at Marshall Heights at 5:45 a.m. Gone were the custom suits and Rolex watches. Dressed in navy blue overalls, scuffed shoes, and a cap pulled low. No one gave him a second glance. The janitor supervisor, a gruff man named Keith, barely looked at him. Lockers over there, clean floors. Don't talk much. From the moment Jaden started his shift, he watched everything. The building was physically perfect, but morally rotten. By 10 a.m., he'd already seen enough to raise alarms. An elderly black receptionist was being humiliated for typing too slowly. A Latina intern was openly mocked for her accent. A disabled employee asked for help and was ignored. But it was when he saw a black man in a suit, an executive from one of the top tenant companies, being refused elevator access to the executive floor by security, that Jaden clenched his fists. Day 2 got worse. He overheard a group of mid-level managers joking about quotas and how they kept minority hires in lower, non-visible roles. One HR rep proudly boasted about firing someone who complained too much. But the worst was the building manager himself, Thomas Greer, a sleek, silver-haired man who treated the staff like dirt and called the janitors walking mops. Jaden listened, took notes, and cleaned, always cleaning, always invisible. One night, while emptying the trash in the HR office, he found shredded documents. He carefully pieced them together back in his hotel room. They revealed cover-ups, cases of harassment buried, complaints ignored, bonuses manipulated to favor certain employees. By day 3, Jaden had earned quiet trust from other janitorial staff. A young woman named Marissa shared her story of being passed over for a promotion for 3 years, despite doing the job of 2 people. A security guard named Daryl, an Army veteran, spoke about racist comments he endured from upper management. "They think we're beneath them," Daryl said one night, "but they don't know who's really watching." Jaden smiled. They would know soon. Friday came. Jaden showed up early, but this time he wore a tailored charcoal suit, silk tie, and polished shoes. Security didn't recognize him at first. He stepped into the executive conference room on the top floor, where the building's senior management, HR, and tenant executives were holding their weekly meeting. "Good morning," Jaden said calmly. Thomas Greer frowned. "This meeting is for executive personnel only." Jaden smiled and reached into his coat. He pulled out his company ID. "It is. I'm Jaden Marshall, owner of this building and CEO of Marshall Properties." The room froze, and for the past 3 days, I've been working undercover in this very building as a janitor. I saw everything, heard everything, and I'm deeply ashamed of what I discovered. Jaden laid it all out. The shredded reports, the recordings, the names of those mistreated, and the unethical practices rampant in the building. He looked each person in the eye. "Effective immediately, Thomas Greer. You're fired. So is the entire HR department." Gasps. "Security personnel who participated in discrimination, gone. Tenant companies found in violation of conduct policies. You have 30 days to retrain your staff or vacate the premises." He turned to the shocked crowd. "This is not just about business, it's about people. Every person who walks into this building, no matter their race, gender, or background, deserves respect. And I will not let my company be a place where hatred hides behind glass walls." In the weeks that followed, Jaden personally met with every staff member in the building. He promoted Marissa to floor supervisor. He hired Daryl as head of security. The elderly receptionist got an ergonomic desk and a well-earned bonus. Jaden instituted anonymous reporting systems, quarterly reviews with employee feedback, and diversity training programs led by external advocates. Marshall Heights became a model for ethical corporate culture, and the staff, they walked taller, spoke louder, and smiled more. Marshall Properties introduced a new initiative, Voices First. Every employee, no matter their rank, could submit ideas and feedback directly to the top. Jaden personally read at least 50 suggestions a week. Employees who spoke out weren't punished. They were rewarded. Jaden also started mentoring young professionals from marginalized backgrounds, offering scholarships and internships through his foundation. He visited high schools and told his story, not as a billionaire, but as a man who once mopped floors to understand how people were treated. News of the undercover CEO went viral. Media outlets dubbed him the billionaire janitor. But the real change came from within the industry. Other property companies began reevaluating their own policies. Tenants in Marshall Heights revamped their HR departments and started inclusion programs. Jaden was invited to speak at conferences, universities, and even Congress, but he never let the spotlight change his mission. He remained grounded. 6 months later, on a rainy Monday, Jaden showed up again in janitor clothes. He didn't tell anyone. He just grabbed a mop and started cleaning. Staff members smiled and shook his hand. Marissa walked by, now confident and composed. Daryl gave him a proud nod. The receptionist handed him a warm cup of coffee. He looked around and saw something beautiful. Not just polished floors, but respect. Not just a building, but a community. Jaden never forgot where he came from, and now neither did the people around him. Because sometimes, to truly lead, you have to be willing to sweep the floor first.